All right, welcome everyone. Today, we are diving deep into the incredible world of phycology, which is, of course, the study of algae. We're going to go on a journey from these tiny, single celled organisms all the way to the giant kelp forests in the ocean. And along the way, we'll see how these amazing life forms don't just survive, they actually shape our entire planet. So, let's get into it.
So, first things first. When you look at all these different things, you've got seaweed, you've got pond scum, all this green stuff, a really basic question pops up. What even are they? Are they plants? Are they bacteria? Or are they in a category all their own? Just kind of keep that question in mind as we go, because the answer, well, it's a lot more interesting than you might think. To really get what algae are all about, we have to look back in time. Our understanding of them didn't just appear overnight. It's really a story that's been built up over centuries of observation, of asking questions, and of course, some major leaps in technology. Okay, so what is the official definition? At its core, it boils down to this. Algae have chlorophyll, which lets them make their own food from sunlight, but they don't have the things we think of with plants, like true roots, stems, or leaves. This simple body plan is called a thallus, and let me tell you, this design has been incredibly successful for billions of years. The history of studying algae is pretty cool, and we can break it down into four main phases. It all started with just basic observations, people just noticing what was in the water. Then we moved into a more scientific phase, classifying them, studying how they reproduce. But the real game changer, the thing that changed everything, was the electron microscope in this last phase. For the very first time, we could actually see inside an algal cell, and that just blew the doors off our understanding. So now we have a pretty good idea of what algae are. The next question is, where do they live? And the short answer is, pretty much everywhere. Seriously, their ability to adapt is it's astonishing. The best word for it is ubiquitous. You find them floating around in ponds and oceans as plankton. You find them anchored to the seafloor. They're on land, too, living on the soil and even underneath it. But where they really show off their survival skills is when we start looking at the most extreme places on Earth.
And this is where it gets totally wild. I mean, algae have conquered places where most other forms of life wouldn't last a second. You have cryophytes that are so adapted to the cold, they turn snow red in the mountains. You have thermophytes that happily live in near boiling hot springs. And get this, there are even epizoic algae that live on animals, like the green algae that grows in a sloth's fur and gives it perfect camouflage.
So how do they do all this? To understand their incredible diversity, we have to zoom in. I mean, way in. Because when we look inside the algal cell, we find a split that goes to the very root of the tree of life. And this helps us answer our first question. Are they plants, bacteria, or something else?
Okay, this is a huge concept in biology. Basically, every living thing, including algae, can be sorted into one of two major categories, prokaryotic or eukaryotic. And the whole difference comes down to one thing. Does it have a true, walled-off nucleus or not?
First up, we have the prokaryotic design. This is what you see in the blue-green algae, which we also call cyanobacteria. Think of it like a studio apartment. There's no separate room or nucleus for the DNA. It's just kind of floating around in the main living space, the cytoplasm. And it's the same for all its other equipment. It's a really simple, ancient design that's a lot like a bacterium.
And then you have the eukaryotic cell. This is what you find in all the other types of algae, and this is more like a huge factory with different departments for different jobs. You've got the head office, the nucleus, which protects the DNA. You've got the power plants, the mitochondria. You've got solar panels, the chloroplasts. They even have cool specialized gear, like pyrenoids, which are little starch-making factories, and an eye spot, which is basically a tiny light sensor that helps it swim towards the sun. Now, people often get algae mixed up with fungi because they can both have that simple phallus body. But the difference between them is absolutely fundamental, and it all comes down to how they eat. Algae are autotrophs. They're producers. They make their own food. Fungi, on the other hand, are heterotrophs. They're decomposers. They have to get their food from the world around them. Have you ever been to the beach and wondered why the seaweed is all different colors? You've got green, red, brown. Well, that's not random at all. The secret is in their unique little toolkits of pigments, the molecules that absorb light.
This chart breaks it all down. So think of chlorophyll A as the basic solar panel. Every alga has it. But they also have these accessory pigments. And these are like specialized panels that are tuned to capture different colors of light. It's a huge advantage, right? Especially in deep water where not a lot of green light gets through. These extra pigments, like the fucoxanthin that makes brown algae brown, can be so dominant that they completely cover up the green chlorophyll, and that's what gives each group its special color.
Okay, so we know what they are, where they live, what's inside them, but how do they make more of themselves? Well, it turns out they have a whole bunch of different strategies, from just making simple clones to some surprisingly complex forms of sex.
The simplest method by far is called fragmentation, and it's exactly what it sounds like. A bit of the alga just breaks off, floats away, and starts growing into a whole new individual that's a perfect genetic clone. It's kind of like taking a cutting from a houseplant and growing a brand new plant from it. Another way is through asexual reproduction, using things called zoospores. The best way to think of these is as tiny little scouts with tails. They're released into the water, and they use their little tails, or flagella, to swim all around and find a great new spot to set up shop. It gives them a massive advantage for spreading out fast when the conditions are just right.
Now, this is what I think is absolutely incredible. When you look at algae, you can actually see the entire evolutionary story of sexual reproduction playing out. It starts out really simple with isogamy, where two gametes that look exactly the same fuse together. Then it gets a little more specialized with anisogamy, where one is bigger than the other, and finally it ends up at oogamy, which is the system that we see in humans and animals and land plants, with a tiny swimming sperm and a big stationary egg. It's all right there in the algae.
Okay, you have learned a ton, so let's put that new knowledge to work with a quick little quiz. Let's see if you can match the alga to its crazy home. But before we do that quiz, I have to leave you with one staggering number: 50%. Phytoplankton, those microscopic algae drifting in the ocean, they produce about half of the oxygen on our entire planet. That means every other breath you take is thanks to algae. Never forget that. All right, quiz time. First question. I'm the alga that makes snow on mountains look red, so I must really, really like the cold. What do you call my kind of environment? If you said a cryophytic habitat, you got it. That's right. These cold-loving algae are called cryophytes.
Okay, next up. Forget the cold. I love it when it's hot. I'm thriving in the super hot water of a geothermal spring. What's my habitat called?
You got it. That's a thermal habitat. And these algae are called thermophytes, living in temperatures that would scald most other life forms. Nicely done.
So let's wrap this all up. What's the big takeaway? Algae are so much more than just pond scum. They are the ultimate masters of adaptation, survivors that have conquered almost every corner of our planet. Just think about it. If we can truly understand how they manage to thrive in extreme heat or cold or salt, we could unlock incredible new technologies for everything from creating biofuels to exploring space. They might be ancient, but believe me, algae may very well hold the keys to our future.